from flight attendant to Christie's, like the big brand.
Like if you believe strongly in something and if you're passionate about it, that already is half the battle won.
Yeah. How much you spend per month?
Close to 4 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the most expensive item that you sold?
Gold teeth in them.
Wow. What was the main challenges in the beginning when you just started?
I feel like the most successful ones know how to pull the right strings at the right time.
What's your strategy in bargaining?
I have none.
Hey, this is Max Chernov, and today we're gonna visit Brenda, the founder of the first vintage jewelry store in Singapore. Her career is fascinating. After being a flight attendant in Singapore Airlines, she managed to find a job in Christie's, a worldwide known British auction house. And after many years of working in New York, Paris, Geneva, Italy and China, she came back to Singapore to found her own company. In this video, you will learn how much money you can make on selling vintage jewelry, what initial investments are needed to start, how an Instagram blog helps grow this business, and what selling techniques are working with ultra rich. So, get yourself a cup of tea and let's go for it.
So Brenda, let us talk about your career, how it began. So you were a flight attendant, right? In the beginning?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was it?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And then you managed to switch like to completely different industry to Christie's in New York, yeah?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of, I took a gemology course in between and I worked in retail for a little while before, and I also taught at GIA before Christie. So in between there was a couple more things that I did.
And why did you switch? Did you feel like it was your passion?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't grow up thinking that it would be. I think I joined Singapore Airlines after junior college, and basically after about 6 years, it was I could see that it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. But during my travels, I've always been very fascinated by the jewelry stores that I would see in, say, New York or in London, in Paris, and the things that I would encounter were very different from what we would see here back in Singapore. So growing up, you would see goldsmith shops and more of the chain stores. But when you travel and you go to the museums and you see the antique stores, that kind of really piqued my interest. And so after I decided that Singapore Airlines was not going to be a long-term career, I decided to take a course in gemology at GIA in Bangkok. And then from there, I was teaching GIA for a while, gemology for a while. I was in retail before I had an opportunity to go for a career fair in Los Angeles where Christie's was actually hiring. So that was how I started. Yeah.
And how did you feel about this, such a big change?
It was a bit scary. I have to say, I wasn't sure because also I had to put a lot of my savings into taking the course and I wasn't sure where it would lead me, but sometimes I can be a bit of a risk taker in that sense. Because I felt like I didn't have a lot to lose and was hoping that, you know, by doing something that I really enjoyed and loved to learn, that something would come out of it. So but it was not an easy decision, but finally I decided to just take the risk and go for it.
So you've taken this course and then you applied for Christie's. Was it difficult to get this job from flight attendant with the course to Christie's, like the big brand?
I think I was very, very lucky that at that time they were looking for someone who could also be, who could help the Hong Kong office based out of New York. And basically the role was to assist a specialist who was servicing servicing the Hong Kong office based out of, so I was joining them as a trainee specialist who could help out of New York, the Hong Kong clients and also the vendors as well who want to sell in Hong Kong. So it was good luck at that time. And I think, it was the stars were aligned and I was lucky to be there at the right time.
Yeah. All right, can you show me one of your favorite items and talk about it?
Yeah, there's a lot, so it's hard to pick one.
Probably all of them,
but I do have a piece that I have just sold that is really quite special. It's from one of my favorite jewelers called Sterling, and it's this wonderful brooch from the 1960s, made out of coral and diamonds and yellow gold. It's really such an impressive, not just the scale, but also in the way that he captures movement. And it seems like it sort of gives me so much strength when I look at it. It's powerful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's already sold?
It's sold, yeah.
Can you
It's going to Hong Kong. So it's this one's around close to $70,000 US. Yeah.
So your job was to find pieces of art and then to find the clients also? So both ways? Yeah?
Yes, exactly. So my role for the most part was as a jewelry specialist at an auction house. Normally we will meet with clients who have pieces of jewelry that they want to sell. We meet people who just walk through the door, or sometimes even work with lawyers and estate lawyers who help clients to sell or get rid of their collection. And then what I do is I would give it a price. I would appraise it, of course, knowing the information that we have to identify the stones, the dating the piece, and then putting an estimate for it for auction. And then there are times when we would help with cataloging or condition reports for the pieces. And when the auction came about, we would actually be the ones who would also reach out to the private collectors and say, hey, something's come, I think this could be for you, why don't you come in and have a look at it? So it was really both ways. As a specialist, you would know how to appraise it, but also ideally be able to help sell it.
Yeah. What part of the day you dedicate for Instagram?
I don't dedicate enough time to Instagram, I think. But
so you post when you feel like it?
Yeah, so. It's terrible, but it's the truth. I do post only when I feel like there is that there is some inspiration, whether it's coming from the jewelry or something I might have read online. But I should be actually much better at allocating time.
Yeah. No, I mean sometimes it's just if you feel like posting, sometimes it's better because if you can show your emotions also, you know, you can say, oh, this is like my favorite item, and then if it's emotions, the people just love it. So sometimes it's better not to prepare for it, but just be spontaneous.
Yeah, I think so. I think that needs to. It's all good tips that. I feel more inspired after our talk today because I feel like you're so good with Instagram, and I need to draw a bit more of that from you.
Yeah. Can you recall any some experience working with your clients, like I don't know, crazy or strange or like this?
Yeah, I think in New York we always had a really sort of a lot of interesting scenarios, and there's definitely the time when we would go into the lawyer's office. This one always sticks in my head for some. It's like because we were asked to go into a lawyer's office to appraise jewelry, which we often get asked to do, and in the lawyer's office, basically they brought like a big Ziploc bag. So it was like just two big Ziploc bags of jewelry that was just placed on the table, and me and my colleague would sit, and the Ziploc bag was colored, so we couldn't really see through everything. And inside, so we were just pulling things out. And one of the things that we had to pull out in the end, was a dentures with gold teeth in them.
Wow.
And so that kind of that was pretty crazy. And we of course, it's not something we appraise. We just put it aside and sort of told the lawyer, I think this might have been placed there by accident, or there's not much value to the dentures. There's definitely a lot of celebrity with the experiences that we've met that was always kind of interesting. Elizabeth Taylor and Uma Thurman, but it was all sort of very interesting. I think at the time in New York, and working also with the Marilyn Monroe collection at that time, there were a few jewelry pieces.
What was the most expensive item that you sold ever?
It would have been a piece of jar jewelry that was a beautiful big red ruby rose brooch that I was on the phone with the client for, and it was pretty exciting because it went multiple times the estimate, and it was such a beautiful one of a kind piece. That one comes to mind. And
how much was it?
I think it was about close to 4 million.
Wow.
And so it was about, I think, this big probably. Yeah.
Okay, so after 15 years in Christie's, you came back to Singapore and decided to open your own business.
Yes, that's right.
How you came up with this idea opening your business?
Yeah, so after I moved back to Singapore, I worked with Christie's for a little while, based out of the Singapore rep office. The jewelry that I was seeing on a day-to-day basis was really more modern, contemporary pieces, which Hong Kong does very well. They sell a lot of gemstones and sort of more modern jewelry, and it just didn't call out to me as much as, you know, my time when I was in Europe and the US, where I was encountering a lot more vintage and signed pieces, and so I felt after about a year or so back that it was not really as interesting for me anymore, and that's when I decided to take another risk, and I wanted to try and see if I could do the thing that I love most, which is vintage jewelry. So I left Christie's and took a little bit of time off, spoke to some clients and to dealers, and a lot of people actually didn't think, well, especially people here in Singapore, didn't really think that there would be a vintage jewelry market, and so it was a bit of a big risk because it wasn't so developed. I think people don't really think about vintage here in Asia as much back then, I think. So this was in 2013. But I felt that, well, okay, in the worst case scenario, if it didn't succeed, you know, I can always go back to working for the auction houses or working for some other jewelry house, and that was my backup plan. So I said, okay, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'll give myself 3 years, and if it doesn't work out, then, you know, at least I tried. And I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of support from my clients and from from the people that I used to work with in terms of the dealers, and so I think in the end timing was actually not too bad. I think that there was a growing interest for vintage jewelry. And I think that on top of everything else, I feel like if you believe strongly in something and if you're passionate about it, that already is half the battle won.
Yeah. So you probably have already sustained relationships with clients. You have a list of clients all over the world, and so like if we speaking about the business model, so. Working in Christie's, you would get commission for every deal, right?
No. Not for auctions. You don't get a commission.
Okay.
It was
not a commission for this 4 million deal.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't. So it definitely. I think at Christie's, as a specialist, or it's not commission based. You have a salary and then you have a bonus at the end of the year. Yeah. But it's kind of a shared bonus depending on how the whole company does. Yeah. So it's not per item that you sell.
Yeah. Yeah. So for your own company, it's supposed to be much more lucrative than working.
I definitely think lucrative in not just monetarily, but also in terms of being able to deal with the things that I love and to meet
choose,
new clients.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you choose items.
I choose, yes.
Yeah. How much money did you need to put for this? What was your initial investments in the beginning?
I think initially we were in. I started it with a partner actually. So I think stock and cash together was probably around 400,000 Singapore dollars.
And it's mainly for buying items.
Yes, so it was stock that I had accumulated myself over the years, and then also was also for renovating our first office, which wasn't here, for PR, also setting up the website and our sort of property system. So yeah, it was a combination. It was not purely for stock. It was part stock and then partly for running costs of the business.
What was the main challenges in the beginning when you just started?
I think the main challenge was when I first started. Actually, I wasn't thinking as internationally. So for the first year or so, I was really thinking about how I can grow the business in Singapore. And I think by the end of the first year, the second year, I realized, maybe I should be reaching out a little bit more. So I started to do trunk shows in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. Singapore is a very small market. It's definitely a growing market. But when we first started, if you have limited resources in terms of doing your marketing and PR, you can't spend. I couldn't spend a lot of money on getting the word out. So a lot of what I was doing was by word of mouth, and then sort of working a little bit with social media. Mm-hmm. But I think that things really changed when I started to think more internationally. So meaning that I would make trips. Hong Kong was a great start for me. I had clients in Hong Kong. I had a lot of friends in Hong Kong who then introduced other friends. And when I did these trunk shows, they were generally quite successful. So I would have stock that I would do put out in a suite in one of the hotels, and for a few days, clients would come over, and it would be by invitation. So I think when I started to do more of these international trips and also going to the US and attending some of the shows, that kind of mindset I think really helped me think bigger and sort of expand in a much faster way rather than thinking only about what I could do in Singapore.
Do you remember your feelings when you made your first sale in your own business?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's great just to have that invoice and to think about the potential of it, because I feel like the jewelry business is also very much a relationship business, and people come to buy from you because they know you well, or they know someone who knows you well, and I think that's always an easier inroad. I think it's not as easy, especially for a certain level of jewelry. I think when it goes above a certain sort of higher level, like above 10,000, you would want to buy generally from either a big brand or someone that that has dealt with this person and has that kind of that trust and the history behind it. I think that makes it a lot easier. So I think the first few invoices were very much that sort of clients that I've worked with, or friends and family, and so that kind of, or the PR company or the hourglass. So I think sort of drawing on all of that made a difference to how we started.
Yeah. Can you recall from Christie's experience, I don't know, the best salespersons? They were different, or they were pushy, or they were more relaxed, or because it's different kind of people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's definitely the broad spectrum, in every jewelry store, in every auction house, where you had the ones who were definitely much more pushy. And sometimes it does work because it just gets people who are unsure to go for it. But I feel also, there are others who sell by knowledge and by their curated eye. So I feel like I'm a bit more on that direction, where with the knowledge and with the experience, I think people are more drawn to me in that way, because they feel that there is sort of that experience and knowing what it is that I'm putting out there that makes a difference, or there's a sense of security rather than just. So in terms of some people who do the hard sell and they just push to think of one sale, I like to think more long term. And to say it isn't just about this one sale, it's about building the knowledge, explaining to them why this one is more special versus something else, and why the trends in the market now are going in this direction versus something else. So I feel that that there are others who do succeed by being sort of a lot more stronger and pushy as well. It's not for every client. I think everyone is kind of reacts in a different way. But I think the most successful ones tend to not be overly pushy and have strong knowledge, and at the same time be able to read clients as they're selling. Like you can read like, okay, someone needs a bit more of a push, and someone is able to, sort of make decisions on their own. So I feel like the most successful ones know how to.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to deal with people with money? Like, for example, we postponed our interview like from last week. You had a meeting with some important client. So would you prepare for these meetings? Like,
yeah, I would. I think that as I said, everyone's kind of different, because I feel like there isn't one sort of formula, and then but definitely being prepared is important.
Yeah. What would you prepare?
I feel like I would sort of look through the jewelry and try to remember things which that particular client might like, and they might be of a certain style. So there are some who will only buy sort of yellow gold jewelry, and they will never want to buy anything bling. They want something a bit more trendy versus there are other clients who are only looking for like big 5-carat diamonds, or they want something that speaks to a certain crowd. So I think I before the meeting I will try and remember, okay, this client likes this type of thing, what kind of price range usually does she kind of look at, and but maybe there might be something a bit special that could also be over her budget but might have a chance, and I will try to analyze what we currently have in stock to then think about how I might position the items to her. So it's a little bit of homework in that sense, and sort of knowing what we have to try and help them to perhaps make a decision.
What was the most expensive one that you ever sold?
A ruby, a Burmese ruby, that is no heat, about 7 carats, and so that was kind of close to $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for this, for example, like almost $1 million worth, you need to buy it first. So you kind of use your own money for this?
So there are two things that can happen. Sometimes what we do is I partner with another dealer. So sometimes we share the risk, and it can be half and half, or sometimes it can be with 3 different dealers. It can also be something that I buy on my own, but for this ruby, of course, it was not all me. So in different scenarios where the value can be very high and the risk is higher, then I might do a sort of a share with other dealers as well. Yeah.
Can you share like any numbers, like your revenue, monthly, yearly?
I think
if you don't want to share, it's okay. Maybe it's just some estimation, like how many items you sell like monthly, just to for our audience to have a rough estimation, like the size of the business.
It ranges from around maybe around 3 plus to 5 million in a year. And 3 plus I think was more sort of at a time when it's a little bit more challenging the earlier year. So it can go up to a bit more, but sort of on a rough average. It ranges in each month, so it isn't so consistent. As I said, a lot of it depends on what I can find in. So we might sell in a month maybe 10 pieces only, or in a month we might sell 40 pieces. So it's rather inconsistent, and it's hard to sort of put a firm figure on it. But I did see a lot more new clients come through during COVID because we can't travel, and a lot of clients who used to put their money into travel would now then come in and spend. So we've found new buyers through social media.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How many staff do you have here?
At the moment, it's just myself and my admin manager. Previously, we had a person who would help us in the front of the store, a salesperson. But at the moment, it's just myself and one admin manager.
What's your oldest item?
The oldest item, I think we have a few here. For example, this is a beautiful, very little bloodstone snuff pendant, and I think if you open it, you can see this wonderful gold trim and work in here, and the way that they have also carved the stem on the piece, it's also really beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would have been used to put snuff and to hang, and sort of smelling salts would have gone in there. From the Victorian period, and we also have.
So Victorian period meaning.
Yeah, sort of like late 1800s. Yeah, more than 100 years old. Yeah. And we also have this lovely pocket watch. Still one of my favorites. It's a pocket watch that you will need a key to wind.
So beautiful.
It's beautiful. I love the workmanship on the gold. Even the elephant has footprints.
Wow.
And to wind it, we had to open up the back and use a key to wind the time. So this would have been also mid to late 1800s. The chain is a bit more contemporary, but the pocket watch itself is quite old.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's not very heavy.
No.
It's just not very light, not very heavy.
Yeah. Lovely 18K gold with little rubies and diamonds.
Nice. Instagram and marketing. So what's your what do you do in Instagram?
So on Instagram, it's I have to say that it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not someone who's good with social media in general. I'm not good about talking about myself, I think, so I do try to be inspired more by the pieces. So if there's something that I brought in that is really inspiring, that's quite special, then I want to sort of tell everybody. Or if we're doing something that is a little bit more unique, or I get inspired by something that's happening. But I think that I probably should be, I'm not the best person to advise on social media. You're probably so many times better. But I think it is important you can't avoid it. We've had a lot of clients that have come through just from Instagram. But I think I try to stay consistent with, that it's important to stay consistent with the brand image. To feel like they're getting something out of it, that they're seeing something special, and it's not just another piece that they could see anywhere else. So I try to think in those terms of being consistent and sort of adding value to what they get to see, because there's so much out there. Yeah.
Can you roughly estimate how many items you sell via Instagram, or it's hard to say?
Maybe I could say through Instagram in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, we might have had about maybe 10 new clients. I can't remember exactly how many, like total invoices, but we've had about 10 different clients. Some who have continued to be very regular, and then there are others who are like one-off looking for things. Who have reached out to us because they've seen something that we have that they've wanted to buy for a very long time. So I think on average it's around there. It's not a lot, but it does, I think, make a difference when they become regulars. And
so if it's the regular photo for Instagram, like white background, would you do it yourself or you hire the photo?
For the most part, I think majority I've done it myself. So I would sort of have pictures of me wearing it, and there are others also where it's just a picture of it sort of on a hand and with sort of a background of the shop. And we try to think about different ways to style the items, but I don't think I have a extremely consistent image that is always, consistent in the sense that it would be either sort of me wearing it or the background of the shop, or something that it's more sort of like a really interesting picture. But not so much. We don't do too much sort of outdoors, for example.
When you show items on your Instagram, do you try to also like reveal yourself, like to show you as a personality and a person who is behind this business? Because it always probably people want to see the face, people want to see you like behind it, right?
I don't know. I've always asked myself that question, whether or not they really want to know about me, but we do have a page on my website that's about me. But on Instagram, I feel like the jewelry should be more important. So I don't often post personal things that are happening, sort of in my life. Very rarely, I think. I might have at the very beginning, but I've kind of moved towards a focus more on the jewelry and the knowledge. So no, I don't. Also, I think I'm not that interesting.
No, come on.
Not as interesting as the jewelry, So,
No.
but yeah, I think.
It's just a nice, to add a touch of personality, because also like people likes more, like if it's, for example, two photos, one is jewelry and one is you wearing the jewelry, they will like the second photo a lot more, and it gives you give more audience for this exact.
Yes, it's
you
true.
Get more reach on
Yeah.
this post.
I think you're absolutely right. That I do find that actually when we wear the jewelry, there's a lot more reactions. So I think it's just me getting it right. Like if I'm sort of the personality and sort of having the right clothes and the right hair and no, I should be braver in getting myself out there. On
No,
Instagram.
for sure. No, people love it when you add a little bit of personality, because people, especially your regular clients.
Yeah.
Because I would love to, like, because I'm following your Instagram, I would love to see you from time to time. What are you doing? Like, especially when the borders are open again and you go for some Hong Kong, London, some exhibitions. It's nice to see what's going, like, behind the scenes. You know, this kind of thing.
It's something I have to learn to cultivate. As I say, it doesn't come naturally to me to sort of video, like take a photo of everything or photo of myself, and so that takes effort and sort of presence of mind to think about, like, oh, I should photograph this, or like people like to go out and take photos of their food and post it, and I do it very rarely. It's not that I never do, but it has to be pretty special, and so I think, but I do know that it's a great draw for many people to see, like, oh, the person behind the brand, right?
Yeah. Maybe
I'll have to keep that in mind and work towards that. Really.
Maybe not the food.
Maybe not food. Yeah.
Food is a little bit like old style already.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
But some, showing some background of I don't know how you spend time here in this nice environment in your shop, or when you do these exhibitions.
Yes.
This kind of
yes, definitely. Yeah. My pitch.
We talk a lot about money in this video.
Yes.
The life in Singapore is quite expensive, right? Or how do you feel?
I think it depends. It depends, because it can get very expensive if if you're talking about international schools or buying a car.
Yeah.
But you can also live very cheaply if you want to eat.
You eat at hawker center.
At hawker centers, public transport is fantastic.
Yeah.
You could take a bus and MRT, and you don't have to worry, and it's all air conditioned, and and I think that it can get expensive for certain things, but it just depends on how you want to live your life, and there are a lot of things that are also very cheap that's free for us. So so no, not too bad. I think if I compare it with some other cities, we're okay. Just don't buy a car.
Just don't buy a car. Yeah. How much you spend per month?
It varies, because it kind of gets meshed between private life and work life, and I don't have it separated in my head, but it's separated, but it's not. I don't know. Maybe it ranges from around 4,000 to, I don't know.
Yeah. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I believe when you back to travel, it's like much more expensive.
Yeah,
but it's kind of working / life related expenses, so it's hard to.
Yeah, it's a little bit more blurred sometimes. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Brenda.
No, my pleasure.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for having me.